Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight. Police shoot and kill a 75-year-old man at the Fox Hill police station. We've got the story. Bahamas bookings take a dip amid coronavirus fears. Why New Providence residents woke up to darkness. Plus, Bahama Grill feeds residents of Pat's Senior Citizens Home.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquim. Top of news tonight, an elderly man on bail for grievous harm was shot and killed by police this morning after he reportedly pulled a weapon on an officer at the Fox Hill police station. Berthany McDermott reports.
An elderly man who walked into the Fox Hill police station around 7 a.m. left in a body bag this morning after police say he produced a handgun and pointed it at the officers. Head of the Central Detective Unit, Chief Superintendent Solomon Cash says the man, who was in his 70s, was required to sign in at the police station as he was on bail for grievous harm. However, after he presented the officers at the front with his identification, the situation turned deadly.
The officer who was on duty at the time asked him to present his ID. When he did that, the officer's attention was drawn to examining the ID. When the officers looked up at the suspect again, the suspect at the time was pointing a handgun in the officer's face. The officers, being fearful, ran from the police station, accompanied by a female officer who was along with him.
Cash says the officers were in fear for their lives and ran from the police station, taking cover behind the building. However, the man then reportedly pursued the officers.
The same male suspect appeared to be in search of them. The officers produced their weapons, discharged at the male suspect, who also fired on the officers. The male suspect then ran west along Ferguson Street, which we are on now. The officers pursued him. The officers, after they engaged him at this point, there was an exchange of gunshot between both the male suspect and the officers. The suspect was fatally shot.
Police say they discovered two weapons in the man's possession. 76-year-old resident LILLYMAE Gator says she was shaken up by the incident.
I was in my bedroom and we just heard the shots. And when I said, Lorel was there, so she said a gunshot, and we just heard a foot running that way, shots after shot, like you fire, I fire, you know, that kind of. But I've been living through this corner now from I was 12 years old and I almost 77. And it's never been nothing like this. I feel like this morning.
This is the fifth incident of police shootings, some in recent weeks. 4 of those men have died. Cash sent this stern warning to anyone thinking of taking on police officers.
The police, we are mandated to protect and serve. And our constitutional rights, we have to protect our lives first. And then we will protect those of, the citizens of the Bahamas. So I would say to persons out there who would think about engaging the police, that should cease. It's not a good thing to do.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
Advanced bookings to the Bahamas are going down substantially, according to Tourism Minister Dionisio, who says there was a rush to cancel travel plans after the U.S. banned travel from the majority of European countries for 30 days. Vonnie Toot has more.
Tourism is a huge business, probably the biggest business on the planet. And it's being significantly impacted.
Before the United States announced plans to ban travel from Europe with the exception of the United Kingdom, Tourism Minister Dionisio says visitor arrivals were robust, and the ministry's records showed that people were still planning to travel to the Bahamas through March and April. However, he said U.S. President Donald Trump's announcement put the nail in the coffin.
It made everybody gasp and everybody think, wow, this is really a major event. And unfortunately, I think it is people who were teetering on whether they should go on vacation or not go on vacation. It really probably put the nail in the coffin.
Now he says there has been a rush to cancel travel plans and advance bookings are plummeting.
Unfortunately, it is going to bring a screeching halt to world travel. Probably for, he said 30 days. But certainly, even if you have plans now, you're not thinking about 3 months or 6 months into the future and how you're booking. And our numbers reveal that our advanced bookings are going down substantially.
The tourism minister was pressed on how the coronavirus, which has infected more than 132,000 people globally, would affect the country's #1 industry. He insisted tourism is an extremely resilient industry.
There's going to be the initial shock of this coronavirus, and everybody's going to get very, very hyped up about it. And then it's going to become, at some stage, the new norm.
His comments came hours after the Bahamas government denied entry to a cruise ship carrying 5 people who tested positive for COVID-19. D'Aguilar admitted there was a momentary pause for the government over whether the ship should be allowed to dock in the country.
The conundrum was that it's a ship that's flagged with the Bahamian flag. And so, that caused a momentary pause. What are our obligations under that agreement? But I think at the end of the day, national security trumps everything. And the government felt that in the interest of national security, it was best to allow the ship to go on to another jurisdiction.
On Thursday morning, MS Braemar, a 929-passenger ship owned by Fred Olsen Cruise Lines, said it would be changing course and heading to the Bahamas. The ship was on a 2-week Western Caribbean cruise when 4 crew members and 1 guest tested positive for coronavirus.
Many of the passengers are elderly, and so therefore in a very high-risk group. And the government of the Bahamas doesn't want to take the risk.
Reporting for our News, I'm Vonique Tude.
The Public Hospitals Authority has established a protocol of what should happen if someone shows up at a healthcare facility and may be infected with COVID-19, according to Deputy Chief Medical Officer Dr. Brennan. The question came up after a Jamaican national showed up at Fleming Street Clinic with certain symptoms this week, causing panic amongst staff and patients.
Put a mask on someone who had symptoms and put them in isolation. Everyone jumped to the conclusion of COVID-19, but the healthcare providers actually did exactly what we would have wanted them to do. It spiraled out from there, but realistically, once you have the person isolated, we would then ask that they call our surveillance unit, call the Department of Public Health, the Ministry of Health. We've provided hotlines. There are multiple numbers on all the updates we send out. Our numbers are at the bottom. So you just call the number and let us know what the situation is. We will then advise from there.
Brennan says public and private healthcare facilities are teaming up to determine how many beds could be made available in the event cases of COVID-19 are confirmed in the Bahamas.
If you get out to a worst case scenario, you're going to need more bed capacity than even we had built in for normal surge. And so what we have started to plan is having, a sort of field hospital or tent hospital setups so that we would be able to surge really quickly to be able to move up to those levels. So 20 or so beds at a time would be set up in order to address that capacity. Ideally, of course, we hope to never get there, but we have some capacity that's being built on site at the hospital, but we're also doing some at off-site locations as well.
However, he insisted about 80% of people who are infected with the virus have mild symptoms and don't need to be hospitalized to be treated.
As long as they stay hydrated, they take something for their fever, they will do fine without having to be in a medical institution. You're really only talking about maybe 15 to 20% of people who do get sick with the virus will have severe disease and may need hospitalization. And an even smaller number of those will have very severe disease and need ICU type of evaluations as well.
The rapid spread of the virus has heightened fear around the world and here in the Bahamas, which has been spared thus far. That fear played out at Fleming Street Clinic when Deputy Chief Medical Officer Dr. Brennan says a foreign national showed up at the clinic with certain symptoms.
A Jamaican national that came to the clinic, and that person had symptoms of a viral illness. So they had, runny nose, cough, wheezing, much like they would with any other viral illness, not specific to COVID-19. But if you also remember, the day before that, Jamaica had encountered its first case. So people heard the word Jamaica, they heard someone with fever and cough, so they automatically jumped to, oh, this must be COVID-19, and it became a little bit of an issue.
Meanwhile, the immediate past president of the Bahamas Doctors Union is tonight expressing concern over a lack of manpower and public health care facilities across the country to deal with the coronavirus.
It's appropriate for what's going on in our country. It's very difficult because we have a particular situation.
Immediate past president for the Bahamas Doctors Union, Dr. MUCOMBA MILLAR, said for years the lack of healthcare professionals within the public healthcare system has been an issue. But with coronavirus now spreading to nearly every continent, physicians are working around the clock. Millar said there's a concern among doctors about the lack of manpower to deal with the deadly virus if cases are confirmed in the Bahamas.
Physicians in Rand, they're on call 1 and 2. That means every other day they're on a 24-hour call, and they've been doing this for years. So when we hear statistics from unknown persons at the Ministry of Health say that we have enough physicians to cover the Bahamas, that is very concerning. And I've said this before, please show me these statistics.
Currently, the Doctors Union has around 400 physicians. While he says physicians are always prepared for medical emergencies, there is a concern about the volume. The screening process for those entering the country, he adds, is also worrisome.
This is spring break, okay? Our GDP depends on tourism. You go in the airport now, you're overloaded with tourists right now. I don't know if you've been to Bahama or Atlantis. We're overloaded with tourists right now. How can we take the screening measures that the U.S. does? Do we have the manpower? I don't really think so. Do we have the manpower to take the temperature and get the travel history of every single American coming through Nassau International Airport?
And as other Caribbean countries confirm cases of the coronavirus, Dr. Millar says physicians are doing all they can to help their patients and are prepared. He added physicians are also doing what they can to remain safe.
That's part of the job. That's part of our oath. We're much more concerned about our families, protocols, whereas that, being told, okay, this person that you saw today has coronavirus, you need to isolate yourself from your family. I wouldn't want to go home and take this home to my daughter. My mother, my mother's over 70 and older, so that's the danger groups right there.
Thousands of residents across New Providence woke up to darkness this morning after 2 Wärtsilä engines tripped offline at Station A, in addition to GT9 at the Blue Hills Power Station. Bahamas Power and Light said in a statement this resulted in a number of outages throughout New Providence. Officials say power had been restored to a majority of the affected areas by 8 a.m. However, some residents of western New Providence had to wait a little longer to have their electricity supply restored. This outage comes days after a new General Electric engine was launched at BPL's Blue Hills Power Station. Back in December, BPL Chairman Dr. Donovan MOXEY said with the installation of 7 new Wärtsilä engines, there would be no more load shedding. A Jamaican man featured in a viral video was ordered to pay a fine or do time behind bars after he was charged and convicted of overstaying in the Bahamas. Giorgio Bain has the story.
A Jamaican national is convicted of overstaying after a video on social media goes viral of the defendant having some not so nice things to say about Bahamians. 42-year-old Jamaican national Omar Walford of Martin Close appeared before Magistrate Carolyn Vaughn Evans to be charged with overstaying in the Bahamas. If the name sounds familiar, that's because in a video that has since gone viral, Walford can be heard saying, "Jamaicans are better, foreigners rule, Bahamians suck." On Tuesday, immigration officers acting on information went to Walford's apartment and were granted access. They questioned the Jamaican national about his immigration status, but he was unable to provide a satisfactory answer. He was then taken into custody at the detention center. Immigration officers discovered that his resident spouse permit expired January 30th, 2018, and no renewal application was then made. It was also discovered that he has made a permanent residency application, but it was canceled due to failure to submit the necessary documents. In court today, Walford pled guilty to the charge and was convicted of overstaying in the country for 2 years. The magistrate handed down a fine of $3,000 or an 8-month jail sentence. Walford would then be deported. The magistrate told Walford that the country is maintained by residents paying their taxes, and when a person refuses to pay taxes, they are robbing the country at large. The magistrate asked Walford if he had anyone in court who could pay his fine. He pointed to his wife, who told the court that she did not have the amount on her at the time. The magistrate informed her that he would be remanded until the fine is paid. Reporting for our news, I'm Giorgio Bain.
All right, thanks, Giorgio. Still to come, ACP Ken Strawn appears in court as he challenges his reassignment. Plus, Royal Caribbean says its bookings remain strong despite the coronavirus. Stay tuned.
On July 10, 2018, after a disappearance at his own hand, Wally Cooper gained consciousness in a very strange land.
Royal Caribbean Cruises Vice President of Government Relations Russell Benford says bookings remain strong despite fears over the coronavirus. The $150 billion cruise industry has been one of the hardest hit since the global spread of COVID-19. Over the weekend, the U.S. State Department warned U.S. citizens not to travel by cruise. However, Benford says people are still cruising the Caribbean.
As it relates to the Caribbean, our bookings remain strong. We instituted a policy last week called Cruise with Confidence, where our guests could could reschedule their cruises, up to 48 hours before leaving, and we wouldn't charge any type of rebooking fee or cancellation fee. And we saw really lower than expected rescheduling of cruises in the Caribbean. So the market remains strong here in the Caribbean.
Benford commended the Bahamas, which he says has the most stringent COVID-19 protocols the cruise line has seen.
From day one, the Bahamas and the requirement for the Bahamas was more strict than any other country that I'm aware of. The Bahamas, far and away by the number of days that people could have been in an affected country, and they stuck to that. So the two things I would really commend the Bahamas on doing is, first of all, clarity of the requirements, which is what we ask for as an industry. We just want to understand what the entry requirements are of a country, because we do respect that no matter where we work. And the second thing is, just to be consistent with the requirements, because what we've seen is that in certain places the requirements change day to day, and it makes it very difficult to operate a business. So Dr. Sands has been very clear from day one. He's been consistent with his message. Every time I reached out to him, he's been available to me.
Bahamian students studying at the University of the West Indies in Jamaica are packing their things and headed back home this weekend. The university informed students that classes have been suspended until April 14th after Jamaica confirmed 8 coronavirus cases. Erace Thompson is pursuing her master's degree in environmental safety and health and says because of her medical condition, she can't take any chances.
In terms of if I feel safe, not particularly at the moment. I'm a respiratory compromised individual because I have asthma, so being in an environment that has the virus is not particularly conducive to my health, and I most definitely want to go home, and I intend to go home in the very near future. I'm in Jamaica as it stands, and I fully intended to go to Carnival next month, but I'm not even sure if that's going to happen. UE has a carnival, and that's been postponed, and various promoters and whatnot have started to pull out of events and stuff.
Ashley Rose is a molecular biology major at UE. She said while she has been taking the necessary precautions, she would prefer to be at home during the coronavirus pandemic.
They sent out an advisory to all of the students yesterday to let us know that school will be closed and to suggest that if it's possible, we go home. I would much rather be at home around my family dealing with this situation as opposed to being at school by myself.
Lawyers for Assistant Commissioner of Police Ken Strawn appeared before Justice Keith Thompson for case management. The brief court hearing ended in an adjournment to April 30th. Strawn was represented by Wayne Monroe QC, while Shaka Serval appeared on behalf of the Attorney General. Strawn was joined in court by fellow Assistant Commissioners of Police Layman Delaveau and Clayton Fernander. The veteran cop filed legal action back in December alleging that the move to appoint him Chief of Security for the LILLYMAE Pratt and Simpson Penn Juvenile Schools upon his return from leave on December 9, 2019 is unlawful and amounts to a demotion in rank. Strawn further claims that Commissioner of Police Anthony Ferguson abused his power by directing him to report to the Minister of Social Services and sending him and other officers on leave in March 2019. Still to come, Bahama Grill treats seniors at Pat's home to lunch. Stay tuned.
On July 10, 2018, after a disappearance at his own hand, Wally Cooper gained consciousness in a very strange land.
You're watching Our News. Welcome back. Owners of Bahama Grill celebrating the life of their late mother who passed away in 2013 by spending her birthday with residents of Pat's Home for Senior Citizens. The Bahamian restaurant treated residents to an elaborate food spread and entertainment today in honor of GERLENE Gibson.
This is what my mother was about. She was about feeding the poor. She's about especially the elderly, not just the poor, but the elderly. That was her focus. And we are using Pat's Home as a venue to celebrate her life, because this is what she was all about. Because we know to keep up a home like this, I don't know if you all went on the inside, but this is not just a home, this is a first-class home. If my mother was alive today and we had to put her in a place, I would feel proud to know that she's in a place like this.
Hutchinson says the restaurant prepared food for 100 people and even sent staff members to serve residents. In addition to honor their mother, Hutchinson says they also wanted to raise public awareness of the work Pat's Home does and the help it needs.
We started last year and it was so good. The response was so good. We decided to make it an annual thing. It was actually only supposed to be a one-time thing, but now we're going to make it an annual thing. And as you can see, look around. I mean, the people, all of the tables are filled. All of us are going to get old one day. And people seem to forget that. And so the seeds that we plant in these people's life, we know that it's going to come back to us when we get older.
Proprietor of the home, Patricia MOXEY, says she was grateful for the kind gesture. She also encouraged other families and companies to follow suit.
This is the second year that her family has chosen Pat Senior Citizens to have this affair, where we all are glad. And I say to God be the glory for the family. They can sit down and have music and just enjoy themselves and enjoy Jesus.